we're speaking today with Julia Pinsky, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's in private practice in Santa Cruz, California, and she offers ketamine assisted therapy, often combined with trauma treatment EMDR. She works relationally and psychodynamically with mindfulness and trauma informed approaches. She is certified in CAP as well as MDMA assisted psychotherapy. And Julia works individually with clients in CAP, but she also offers remote group sessions. And she's a lifelong artist who is compelled to create and be generative in the forms of painting and bookmaking and jewelry making and knitting and crocheting and cooking and gardening, and the list goes on.
And yeah, yeah, I think it's genetic. My daughter is also an artist, and I was just speaking with my sister and my niece, and just that making things with our hands is just in all of us.
So very beautiful. So very.
I'm so happy to be here with you, and I know that you and Camilla are doing such important and groundbreaking work with ketamine in your area, and I'm just so I love hearing about what you're doing, and I'm just happy to be here to talk about anything you want to talk about, and to help educate, to help people who are curious about ketamine, either from the client side or from the therapist side, or anybody who's just wants to know where we are as clinicians and why we work with ketamine.
Exactly. I think us all being licensed therapists and people learning that this is real therapeutic work, evidence-based work that we're doing, I think carries so much weight. So hearing from you how you incorporate CAP into your practice and why are we making this choice? What are we seeing in our practice? What motivates us to keep offering this and going to the extent to educate the public to make sure more people know is going to be the conversation, I think, for the next couple
Yeah,
minutes that we have together.
Yeah, and
beautiful.
also, Julia, we'd love some clinical examples if you have any that you could share, because
Sure.
sometimes we find it's nice for people to hear like what's really happening. That's
Right,
okay.
exactly. Exactly. That's a good thought, Camilla, because otherwise it's abstract, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I could just start by talking about how I came to work with ketamine. And it was through being curious about psychedelics in general and following what MAPS was doing with the MDMA trials, and knowing that there was this other way of working especially with trauma, where a not just an antidepressant or something that would dampen people's um, emotional and somatic response to trauma, but would help them to feel safe enough to dig in, to go there, and to do the deeper work of therapy. Because I've worked with a lot of folks with trauma and PTSD. And honestly, there was actually one woman who I worked with who I helped her prepare for ayahuasca. And so she was doing ayahuasca ceremonies, and then she would come and we would do EMDR afterwards. So she would get prepared. We'd be talking about like what material might come up. And this was some years ago, 8 years ago. And I watched her blossom. I watched her go from, and being caught in a pattern in her life that she was well aware of, and well aware of the pattern. And she had done therapy before coming to me, etc. And we were doing good therapy together. And then she started ayahuasca. And then pretty soon she did not qualify for a PTSD diagnosis. So then that started me thinking, well, maybe I should be looking at, working with MAPS and getting involved in the MDMA trials. And that it was just like not practical for me, honestly. to work on clinical trials. I have a private practice, and then I learned about ketamine actually through Journey Clinical, who sent out an email saying, "Hey, we can work with ketamine in a legal way." And here's all the evidence that it helps definitely with depression, with treatment-resistant depression and anxiety. And then there was all of this research going on with ketamine as well around trauma, around anxiety, around OCD, etc., end of life anxiety. I guess the stigma that around ketamine was in me because I was like, ketamine, right, at first. And then once I started looking into it, I just thought, okay, this is something that I can now offer to my clients, and I can get trained, and maybe it'll move the dial, help people to heal in a similar way that these other investigational drugs are being looked at right now. And guess what? It really does. And now I don't think of ketamine as like the poor cousin of MDMA or psilocybin. It's like it's its own very robust molecule that our clients and the therapist, it's like a partner in the room in therapy. Yeah.
And I'm curious, Julia, why is it important do you think, to work with a therapist instead of, there are a lot of services that you can just get it at home and journey on yourself, like more of a DIY
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're
thing?
well, if you're looking to heal from trauma, or looking to change patterns, or especially healing from anything that's happened to you relationally, I really believe that the healing isn't just like the drug going into the body and doing its thing. I mean, it does have actually, places like Mind Bloom or some of the others, I'm sure that people do get some benefit. And yet, to work with a therapist who can hold a safe space for you and who knows how to reflect and how to be, I think of therapy as like there's this rhythm in therapy for me that I name for myself, that I follow, I follow, I follow, and then I lead. And then I follow and I follow and I follow and then I lead. And it sounds very simple, but I had to have years of training to learn how to lead, right?
Hmm.
And so without that, it's the way. I don't want to say that it's not valuable to be taking ketamine, you know, medically and individually and on your own, but the value when you combine it with therapy is like, in my world, times five. Yeah. Yeah.
What you're seeing in your practice is something that is backed up by research and by, yeah, we know this.
Yeah, we do. We do. And even like my early experiences with this one PTSD patient, I don't know what it would have been like had I been able to be with her while, but and because there are some underground communities, or definitely, if like don't get any of this stuff off the streets, people. It's just like you don't know what it is, but the you don't know if they're really holding holding a safe container for people to be open and vulnerable. And so that's what's great about ketamine therapy, is that it is therapy. It's therapy that's enhanced with the ketamine experience. It's definitely different for clients to be in a non-ordinary state, and then to have that material come up. Like today, just this morning, I was with someone and we were doing low dose ketamine combined with EMDR. And it was so touching because she had done she had done actually 6 high dose therapies, high dose sessions. And now we're doing a series of low dose combining their EMDR. So this was her first. And she said, at one point, she said, "I'm 9 years old. I feel like I can remember, not just like remember, but she felt her 9-year-old again." And she remembered just little images, but mostly it was the feeling in her body that ketamine helped her to remember, right? Because she has the story about her childhood. And even in the high dose ketamine sessions, she mostly benefited from the critical learning period, or the period of plasticity, neuroplasticity, increased neuroplasticity afterwards, and the integration. But in this, with the low dose, we were having a conversation, and she had the buzzers in her hand, and there was something about the whole combination that she just felt like she was nine again. So we're going to jump off from there. This will be, I don't know how many weeks of work, but we got to something just so visceral and core about her life experience that now she wants to explore more, that she couldn't get to even with the higher dose ketamine. So we found the higher dose ketamine was beneficial, but now we've like found an inroad to her core wounds. And that was just a hard, hard, but beautiful thing to see.
And I'm hearing how dynamic this can be, from going from a high dose to a psychedelic dose to a psycholytic dose, where you can do things like EMDR or parts.
Right. Yeah, and be in the relationship, right, with the therapist. And
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, and then another client just said, and I'd even somebody who I had worked with for a while, she did a series of ketamine treatments, both low dose and high dose, about a year ago, and she was here doing another high dose ketamine treatment just to get back in there after some time, and we've been doing therapy in between. And she said, yeah, she said, she's like, remember when I had that pain in my neck? And I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that. That was intense. And she said, I haven't had it at all since, because in like it was a combination of, in a high dose session, she remembered, it's not like she had recovered memory, but she started talking about a car accident she was in as a child. And then afterwards, we did some EMDR right afterwards, and she just kept saying, yeah, like my neck, that's where my neck always hurts back, like always, like her whole life, always hurts back here. And she remembered that she had been hit right there as a child, and she had this like guarding, the body remembers, right? She guarded this area of her body, and we did combination ketamine with EMDR, and then talked about it in the weeks following. And then that subject kind of trailed off. We didn't go back, and I actually forgot to check in with her, and she says, "Oh yeah, that's gone. That pain's gone. It's great." So I know, yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah,
That's exciting.
yeah,
Really, really.
yeah. There's I guess, I'm realizing that the two examples that I just gave were very somatic, right? That felt sense of memory, that felt sense of being nine. And if that felt sense of, I mean, because my client who was nine, who thought, who embodied her 9-year-old, it was fear that was coming up. Just how afraid, how scared she was. A lot as a child. She was scared a lot as a young child. And that's shaped her worldview. That shaped how she navigates the world. It shapes how she's disengaged from the world. And that's been her depression, is a big disengagement. So it's not easy, just like a lot of therapy, it's not easy to go there. But the ketamine opened the door to going there.
Yeah, so beautiful. And what I'm wondering, as maybe clients listening to us talking, is I wonder if people might be wondering, oh, do I need to go back into therapy? I usually hear these psychedelic assisted therapies, work quicker, or they're instead of therapy. How do you incorporate ketamine in your practice outside of maybe as a companion for our more long-standing clients where it's such a beautiful tool. We have the relationship, we can work really deeply, right? Like really navigate when and how to use it and boost that therapy. Do you work with ketamine in other ways as well?
Well, I work with Journey Clinical, helping new therapists to have, if they qualify, have usually their first ketamine experience. So I do groups for therapists. I'm actually, you don't know this, I'm actually partnering with a woman named Jessica Sorcy here in Santa Cruz, and her specialty is working with moms. And she asked me if I would do a group with her, and so we're going to be doing a mom's parts group, and she calls them mom parts, right? And so we're going to be doing a group with anybody who's a current mom, anybody who's ever been a mom, anybody who's like has mom energy in them in any way. So that's another way that I work with ketamine. But in my private practice, when I work with individuals, I prefer, and this is my way, I prefer to be therapy forward with and let people know. So when people come to me to say, I want to do therapy 6 sessions and be done. I don't really work like that. I really like to do a lot of, trust building, very relational. So I feel like I want to work with clients who want to commit to therapy and commit to change in their life, not to commit to me or to commit to therapy, but commit to creating a meaningful and lasting change in their life. And I don't know that 6 sessions, even with robust, perfect, lovely ketamine therapy container, can do that. I really think that the integration, the meaning making, the insights that come are amazing. And then it's like over time, let's see how that can kind of take hold. I do work from a psychodynamic, psychoanalytic lens, and yet I don't do psychoanalysis. So I don't do um, long-term therapy with people unless that's what they really believe that they need.
That's important to know, Julia, because I find a lot of people come and they're like, "Oh, I've heard it's like you do ketamine once and it's like 10 years of therapy. So
Right,
I can just
right.
have this one experience and then I'll be healed and I can live my best life."
Well, I mean, you
I'm
can
hearing you
get
say
a
just
whole, yeah, yeah. And the thing is that a whole lot can come up and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing things clearly for the first time. And honestly, I think that when that happens with any psychedelic, honestly, that you know, to work with that material over time is just so important because otherwise it fades away. And we rubber band snap back to our old patterns. As I hear myself talk, I feel like you're sounding like a real CBT behavioral person. But I do believe in it's like we really do have to look at our behavior, right? And to kind of really look at like what has qualitatively changed over time. And that's what I think a therapist can do too, is like reflect that back. When you first came to me, you were fighting with your husband every single night, and now it's once a month.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's something about mindset, right, as part of set and setting that I'm hearing.
Uh-huh.
People entering this process with the openness to embrace a journey, as opposed to this needs to happen quick and it needs to happen in 3 or 4, whatever it is, sessions,
Right.
right? And really coming in with that open mindset of appreciating it
Mhm.
as a journey. That
And
does.
sometimes it's our job as therapists to help them manage their expectations. I mean, even if people do come with this hope that a few sessions of ketamine will be the magic fairy dust that makes their life all better, a therapist can help, um, not just burst that bubble, but also just say, hey, watch for the little changes, or you know, um, let's set a real, let's set intentions and not goals. What does that mean? And listening for when there's kind of putting all their eggs in the ketamine basket thinking, it's like, oh, ketamine is your partner, or, you know, it helps amplify your process for sure, but it's you. Like as they say, you are the medicine, right?
Yes, and thank you for reminding everyone or teaching everyone who's listening. That is such an important part of this work.
Yeah. Yeah, the inner intelligence, the ways that we can tap into our own innate healing and knowing where we need to go. And that's another thing that a skilled therapist can really help with is not prescribing how someone should think or feel, but holding that with them and helping them guide themselves toward where they want to be, not where the therapist wants them to be. Yeah, I mean, there's so much, I think, misguided thinking out there around therapy in general that you go to a therapist and the therapist is going to give you advice and tell you what to do. And then add ketamine to that. The therapist is going to tell you what to do, and then the ketamine is going to make everything good. And it's just going to work that way. Yeah,
And it doesn't work that way individually either if you do it by yourself. You're not going to go
right,
in, and the ketamine is not going to be your magic 8 ball that is going to tell you what to do.
right. Yeah, and especially these days too, with all there's a lot of street ketamine out there. There's a lot of party ketamine, right, that people are doing. And it really worries me, really, really worries me, not only for the physical effects of it and the becoming addicted, but also psychologically, kind of how that's affecting people. So I want to keep this. I want to do my part, my small part, to keep this offering of ketamine to people to combine it with therapy as to keep it going, so that the so that it's not risky, or very minimally. I mean, no medicine or drug is without some risks. Um, but that's why we partner with our medical partners, as therapists. We partner with the prescribers to be the gatekeepers, right? And um, yeah, I just really think that combining non-ordinary state in a therapeutic container just makes sense, right? We can touch into to the our defenses go down. That's one of the things with low dose ketamine is that, and I should find more scientific research on this, or but it really seems like it's very similar to MDMA in that we have access to a deeper felt sense of ourselves, and our defenses are softened, so we can come in contact with our wounds when you're on like 50 milligrams sublingual or 100 milligrams sublingual, or even I was hearing from someone the other day that they do subcutaneous. So it's not IM, it's just subcutaneous low dose. Like, huh, okay, yeah, from a nurse NP who does the work subcutaneous. Yes.
I really enjoyed hearing your client examples around psychoanalytic, it's not psycholytic dosage. So it was interesting because my experiences with working with these low dosages have been similar in being able
Mhm.
to access these really young parts safely. And I too just had, a client who's done it before and who said, yeah, like I really want to go back and do that because I do feel a child part. And she could just sense that working with it gently and at a low dose and with therapeutic guidance would benefit her more than going into a full deep experience. And I didn't
Yeah.
explore with her, but that was her sense. She's like, there's a
Mhm.
time to benefit from these big journeys.
Mhm.
And she really had the sense of, no, this is something that I need to address. Like in a two
Mhm.
hour, like we oftentimes do longer sessions and really create the space and like very
Yeah.
gentle. And she was able to really address all of the protectors and shields and really go to these very special places just like your client.
Mhm.
It's very, very, very powerful. I know we have to end in just a moment.
Okay, darn.
In closing, because we work at our house a lot with groups for many reasons, right? One, because we believe in access and it helps, right? But that's not the main reason. It's also the power of the group and amplifying group dynamics and the journeys. And we're just wondering what your experiences are in working with groups, if there's anything you would like to share with people.
Well, one thing that I really love about groups is when you come together as a group, everyone's a little nervous and maybe don't know each other. And then there's a deepening that happens and a connection that happens that even sometimes shows up in the journeys themselves. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but sometimes themes, like even on Zoom groups that I do with clinicians, they'll come out of their deeper journeys and the theme of water will be in every single, like there's something about the collective that happens in a group. And then people start talking, telling the story of their journey, like telling a dream, right? That really helps with that deepening of connection in community. And just knowing that other people are with you in your experience. That's kind of an intangible that is very powerful. It's not just a therapist holding space for you, which is good, but this is a group of 5 people who you've just had a possibly transformational experience with, and you were witnessed by 5 or 6 people. That's cool.
Yeah, and I was just going to bring it back to we learn so much from indigenous practices, and that's how indigenous groups work. They heal in community and they sit in circles, even if it's not medicine, if it's fire, if it's music, it's that container of witnessing and being witnessed. So it sounds like you're saying
Yeah, absolutely, Camilla. That's the one of the invocations. I'll end with this. One of the invocations I often do is to ask people to hold the medicine in their hand and consider all the ways that this medicine was created by all these people and how it even got here. Even the UPS driver, right, is part of this, right? And then it's like, and then expand that to then how did you get here? All the people in your life, and your teachers, your family, your friends. Yeah. And then what about this place where we're sitting? Look at the history of this place. And then there's an energy to the land that you sit on, and to honor that. And then, it's just like a way to like really bring reverence to the act of taking in this medicine. And I know that that's akin to some indigenous practices. I guess I've integrated that into my practice.
beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for asking me.